Stay with the region then and talk about Dubai. They're planning to expedite government payments to small and medium-sized companies in an effort to revive growth in the Middle East trade and business hub. The government will pay SMEs within 30 days. That's instead of the 90 days, according to the state-run WAM news agency. The measure is expected to result in 1.6 billion dirhams. It's $435 million of additional liquidity to companies. Joining us now is Mohammed Abu Basha. He is the head of macroeconomic analysis at EFG Hermes. Welcome to the program. I look at this latest measure and I look at the many conversations we have when it comes to the lack of economic momentum in the Dubai economy. And the question becomes, is this going to be enough to make a meaningful difference in economic activity?
I think, Yusuf, it's falling within the line of thought that we've seen from the Dubai government in the last maybe 7 or 8 months in trying to ease the difficulties that a lot of the businesses are facing in terms of whether it's insurance, payments, and so on. I think it's clearly going to help, but I think, part of where Dubai is right now is more on the cyclicality side of where we are in the global growth cycle. Strong dollar, weak oil prices is clearly denting growth, prospects in Dubai. So we need also that, to be fixed just to really see the business, reviving.
I was looking back at some of the inflation. I mean, we're trying to sort of get the economy right-sized here and back on the growth trajectory. But there's a headwind, isn't there? And it's in the form of deflation. If you look at the January CPI numbers, they declined the most in 3 years. This is something that you're particularly worried about, not just in Dubai, but in the region.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, last year we had the VAT implementation. So this year we're seeing the base effect of it. But, even if you look at last year, in both Saudi and UAE, where the VAT was implemented, we haven't seen that much inflationary, impact from the VAT in relative terms, which is suggesting that, a lot of businesses are not really able to pass, that on to consumers because they feel that, consumers cannot really absorb that, and businesses had to absorb and take maybe a hit on their margins a bit. And that's clearly a sign of, general weakness in consumption in both countries.
I mean, before we talk about Saudi, what's your read on the oil price? Because any conversation on the region, on the GCC specifically, always uses the oil prices as a good component of that. We had Barclays reiterating their outlook, $70 a barrel for 2019. Where do you stand in that conversation? What do you expect from OPEC come April?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for, again, $70 for 2019, thinking that I think OPEC will stick because, to the production cuts that, they've proposed. Because clearly, the current oil prices are not extremely helpful for their budgets. I mean, most of the bigger countries, they need oil prices higher than where we are right now.
Can I ask you, I mean, look, oil price is that symbiotic relationship, and when you talk about the Middle East, we do that, but also politics is very much at play. Qatar, we understand, are ready to resolve the trade dispute with the UAE. Now, this would be through the form of WTO. I find this, to me, actually, is quite a significant shift. There was a lot of shuffling last week, wasn't there, about, what the ports were allowed to do. But this is the first sort of moderately concrete thing that I've seen since I've been here. So this is quite significant. If it takes place.
If it takes place, I would agree. I mean, it's there's, as you said, I mean, there's the oil anger, there's the strong dollar, there are the fundamentals, but there's also the sentiment, that clearly the conflict has not necessarily been helping sentiment, across the entire region.
Would that shift confidence for you?
To me, it's a sign in the right direction. I mean, we need these, many small things just to help, along where we are in the cycle for sure.
What about Egypt? We know you've been bullish on that for quite some time. Yeah. Foreign investors are coming back into the fray. But on the growth front, it's also a difficult path ahead in terms of how the central bank could either contribute or take away from that, together with some uncertainty on the fiscal outlook. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think in our view, we think, the economy is prone to some significant easing, going forward. This is an economy that has been subject to, a significant tightening in the last 3 years, both on the fiscal and monetary sides. And we think over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see mostly the exact opposite, which is, some nice rate cuts. We think maybe around 4 to 5% over the next 18 months. Fiscally, beyond the next subsidy cut mid next year, they'll be done with their fiscal, consolidation program. So I think this will allow a lot of easing, for the economy, which is really, really much needed for Egypt to grow.
So where does that leave you on the Egyptian pound trade? Because the forwards are moving away from the spot rate quite a bit. What's your call?
I mean, our call is, generally we think that there will be a bit of volatility. The mechanism is out of the way. We've seen a bit of the volatility. We've seen the inflows pushing the currency, appreciating maybe around just plus 2%. I think within the year we're going to see, a bit of volatility, but generally we think it's, 1760 to 18 is the range where we think the currency will mostly be trading at this year.
Okay, Mohammed, thank you very much. Mohammed Abu Basha, Head of Macroeconomic Analysis over at EFG Hermes. Thanks for your thoughts this morning. Up next, the President of Algeria defies